This Saturday, the NXT Championship will be on the line in a triple threat match, while an ambulance match holds a superstar's future on NXT in jeopardy. And former friends will clash in a weapons wild bout. Let's break down everything advertised for the show along with predictions for who will be victorious in the matches on the card. Ambulance match. Damon Kemp vs. Julius Creed. The ambulance match between Damon Kemp vs. Julius Creed is arguably more interesting for its secondary stipulation than its primary gimmick. If Kemp wins, Brutus Creed will leave NXT rather than his brother. Rarely does someone in WWE have to fight for the career of another superstar and not themselves, which means the creative team must have something in mind for what to do with that scenario. Julius winning is simple. He gets revenge on the bad guy and puts the feud to bed. But if Kemp wins, what happens with Brutus? There isn't an NXT UK to go to. And it wouldn't make sense to bring just half of the team to the main roster. What about Roderick Strong? Is he going to appear to get payback on Kemp for attacking him? Or was that all a ruse wherein he'll reveal he's been in on it against the Creed brothers from the start and wasn't actually attacked? While it could be messy to find a way to bring Brutus back, it would be the more interesting outcome to generate buzz. Prediction: Kemp wins. Spin the wheel, make the deal. Apollo Crews vs. Grayson Waller. A blood feud isn't literal phrasing, but with Apollo Crews and Grayson Waller both bleeding from their eyes as part of this storyline, it's fitting they are doing battle at Halloween Havoc. At the moment, their match gimmick is unknown. They will spin the wheel to determine what stipulation is added to the fight, which could prove to be anything. Given how Shotzi and Quincy Elliott are hosts, it will likely be set up for the wheel to land on their choice and they will opt for something simple like a trick or street fight. The result will be the same, though. Crews needs a solid win to re-establish some of his credibility since rejoining NXT, as he's been around for months and done very little. Prediction: Crews wins. Weapons wild match, Cora Jade vs. Roxanne Perez. It hasn't been fully spelled out yet, but a weapons wild match is likely to be akin to a standard no disqualification bout. Foreign objects will be legal and there will be no countouts. Don't expect too much variety in the weaponry, either. It will mostly be kendo sticks, the primary weapon in the women's division for the past decade, and maybe a fire extinguisher and a few steel chair shots to the back, at most. However, this should boil down to a callback to the original spark of this feud, wherein Cora Jade tried to smash her skateboard over Roxanne Perez, only for it to break beforehand in an unfortunate botch. Ideally, the prodigy will get her revenge by nailing her former best friend with a skateboard and scoring a pinfall. Perez has suffered so many losses in the past few months that she needs a win to pick herself back up. Jade can afford to lose this. Prediction: Perez wins. Ladder match for vacated NXT North American Championship. The NXT North American Championship has been a messy scene over the past month. Wesley won a fan vote to earn a title shot, only to be taken out prior to the match by an attack from Carmelo Hayes. Solo Sikoa randomly filled Lee's spot and won the title, only to be stripped of it the next week by Shawn Michaels for not being a sanctioned competitor. After a series of qualifiers, Hayes and Lee will now be joined by Nathan Frazer, Oro Mensah and Von Wagner in a ladder match to crown a new champion. Frazer is the least likely to win, as he seems more poised to become a tag team with Axiom than to go on a singles title run. Mensah could win, but that's a lot of responsibility to put on someone who previously hadn't even had much of a chance to grow in his NXT UK tag team title reign. Giving the title back to Hayes for a third time reeks of WWE not knowing what to do. He dropped it to Cameron Grimes just to win it back. Why lose it to Sikoa and then regain it? It is truly down to Wagner and Lee. Wagner is the biggest guy in the match, so it would make sense if he had an easier time climbing the ladder, but he could still be built up to challenge for the NXT Championship instead. Lee is the one who was robbed of the original title shot. For this to come full circle with him winning the title is the best story to tell. Prediction: Lee wins. NXT Women's Championship, Mandy Rose vs. Alba Fire. Mandy Rose has held the NXT Women's Championship so long that only Shayna Baszler and Asuka are above her for longest number of combined days as champion. No matter what the circumstances, she retains the title at every turn and continues to hold the women's division on her shoulders. Having this run stop now, with Alba Fire being the one to finally dethrone Rouse, would be a disappointment. There isn't enough momentum behind the challenger to make it feel warranted. These two have had an on-off feud for so long that this comes off more like a stopgap than the end of their rivalry. Fire is the longest reigning NXT UK Women's Champion, so she makes sense as a challenger, but she shouldn't trade in her flaming bat to start carrying the torch for the women's division right now. Rose should lose it in a way that crowns a new star, rather than just handing it over to someone who's hovered around the title scene for the past year. However, the change could happen because WWE seems keen on Toxic Attraction moving to the main roster. Taking the title off Rose would allow the freedom for that. Prediction: Rose wins. Unless a main roster call-up is in store for Toxic Attraction. NXT Championship Triple Threat: Braun Breaker vs. Ilja Dragunov vs. JD McDonagh. Braun Breaker has already defeated JD McDonagh, so has Ilja Dragunov, who beat him in a loser leaves NXT UK match just before the brand was disbanded. On paper, McDonagh is there to take a pinfall for one of the two babyfaces, but it isn't quite so cut and dry now that Austin Theory has teased a Money in the Bank cash-in. However, it's most likely Breaker will retain, particularly as he's been the standout project of the past year. Dragunov could win by beating McDonagh to avoid having Breaker lose the title by his own pinfall. But to go from one babyface champion to another is a lateral move. McDonagh could technically do the same by pinning Dragunov to even that score, moving the title to a heel, but his track record makes that doubtful. Theory's cash-in was a great tease, but it would have worked better if WWE hadn't forewarned us about it. Now that it's out there, it seems less likely. Breaker has overcome the odds before. This seems as good a time as any to rinse and repeat the formula. Prediction: Breaker wins.